Hey Jedi friends, Jedi Rich here with another episode of reasons why Las Vegas is not back yet. Now this is not from a party's perspective. I'm not trying to be a party pooper here. I'm not saying, hey, don't go to Vegas because it's not fun. I'm saying it from an investor standpoint because people need numbers. And one of the issues that we've always had with Las Vegas was very, very difficult to get accurate numbers coming out of that city. Primarily because there's one industry, tourism, the casinos, that's it. And the reason why, if there's one industry, that means that everybody there is dependent upon that industry. The newscasters, the bloggers, everybody that lives there, everybody, you know, a dentist, you know, so they all want the casinos to succeed, even though whether they gamble or not. Most of them don't gamble, most of them don't go to the casinos. But they all want them to succeed, because if they don't, then what happens is Clark County will have to start paying for the Giant Stadium themselves. So that's why it's very difficult to get the numbers out. So I just want to start off with that to let you guys know that, you know, I'm not this. You know, I love Las Vegas. My mom lives there. We have property there. All my stuff is still there. You know, so we're not out here to kind of just be whatever. It's kind of more just telling you what's going on. And what happened is that you're hearing a lot of news from Resorts World, from Giant Stadium. These things these events that need to happen because they just built them, and then the county needs the hotel rooms filled, otherwise they're on the hook for $750 million to pay for the stadium. So if people don't come to Vegas, the county is going to have to start taxing the locals more money. And the general consensus with the locals was, no, we don't want to pay for the stadium. Very few Raider fans live in Las Vegas. I mean, there might be a handful online that happen to be in Vegas, or people that have, you know, converted, but for the most part, the Raider fans were in Oakland, in LA, not in Las Vegas. So it got voted down, but they did approve the stadium if the big if was this: they didn't have to pay for it. So if you tell them that they have to start paying for it, they're going to get mad. So everybody is going to be on the same board when they tell you that, hey, business is great, Vegas is back, and look at it's booming. Well, here's a couple reasons why it's not. Number one is there are no conventions. Conventions haven't fired up yet. So how can Vegas be back without conventions? I mean, until you start booking big conventions, you're not going to have Vegas the way it was in 2015 when they planned all this stuff. Secondly, in 2015, the big thing was EDM music. EDM DJs were crossing over. Calvin Harris was dating Taylor Swift. I mean, it was like the EDM movement had hit a peak. And as a result, Las Vegas and Steve Wynn's nightclub, Club Excess, was the center of the EDM DJ universe. From about 2009 to about 2000, well, up until 2017. The shooting in Las Vegas killed concerts, did a number on concerts, and did a number of things on nightclubs. After the shootings, they never recovered. The nightclubs never recovered. They didn't bring in the numbers that they were bringing in. In fact, if you go pull up the numbers, it might not even have anything to do with the shooting. It might just be that maybe EDM music just wasn't cool anymore. I mean, it had its run. For those of you who, you know, nightclubs are a very fickle business. So, you know, what's hot for 5 years, you know, they kind of die off. So if Las Vegas's revenue was a large portion of what was coming in, the money that was coming in was a result of the nightclubs. Well, let's say the nightclubs go away. Then what happens? So that's kind of where we're at now. And so what they're trying to say is, hey, look at all this business, look how busy it is. But what they're doing is they're comping rooms, so the rooms are full. But the guests still have to pay. If you stay at an MGM property, the guests still have to pay the resort fees and the taxes, specifically the stadium tax. So they just want people in there any way they can, because they don't want to have to pay for those for the stadium. So next issue is Resorts World. See, Resorts World is owned by a company called Genting. And Genting is run by, he's an engineer. He got his degree in engineering. And then he took a 6-week class at Harvard in 1979 in business management, advanced business management. And from there, now he's running this conglomerate that has industries in biotech, in cement, in construction, and obviously in entertainment and in cruise lines and hotels and casinos. Basically anything. Anything, they don't specialize, it's not their thing. They see an opportunity, they take it. So what happened was, in 2013, think about this. 2013, XS is the #1 nightclub in the universe, outpacing anyone in New York City, Paris, London, anywhere. And then the next club is Marquee. Same story, and it goes on. It's like those clubs are bringing in over $100 million a year each. And then you had Hakkasan, another $100 million. So all these clubs are bringing in all this money in 2013. So what happened was is that the guys over at Genting, I'm sure they thought, hey, there's a piece of property right across the street from Tao and XS. Let's buy that and build a nightclub resort right there. And we'll call it Zouk. We'll put it right there. And that's what they did. And that was 2013, they came up with the plan. But what happened was, they ran out of money when Trump was elected in 2016. The Malaysian currency took a nosedive and they didn't have the cash. So the project got put on hold. And then in 2017, the shooting. So then after that, as I mentioned, nightclubs were kind of done. But the problem is, they didn't adjust their plans. They didn't make changes to what was happening around because they were on their, he's an engineer. I imagine in engineering school, they didn't teach you to put your ear to the ground or throw leaves up or just trust your feelings. What they taught you to do was come up with a plan and then execute it. No matter what. And that's what they did. And they changed the theme. They had to scale it back. They got some more money in 2019. But in 2019, Steve Wynn was already sold out. He was gone. He sold all of his interest in Wynn in 2018. So in 2019, MGM was in the process of selling the Mandalay Bay, the MGM Grand, Circus, and the Bellagio. So you have MGM selling out, Steve Wynn's selling out, Venetia's still hanging in there, but that's, they've got other businesses. So, but the Venetian's kind of dragging them down a little bit because the nightclub scene ain't there. It hasn't returned. But the problem is, Genting don't know that. They don't have the wherewithal. See, Steve Wynn was kind of he's the Vegas guy. He had his, so that's why he nailed everything, because he was feet to the street, He knew what was going on. Whereas Genting has a guy who's an engineer, and he sits back in his office, and he just does things by the numbers, and whatever looks good. And because the club was called Excess, they wanted to make Resorts World an excess. So they have all these, it's all excessive in there. It's all these Rolls Royces and everything. They're not even reading the temperament of the crowd in 2021. People are not into waste. They're not into excess. They're into health. They're into, you know, I mean, things are very different now. Nightclubs aren't even open. They're not even really back yet. I mean, when I say they're, like, yes, nightclubs are open, but I mean, nightclubs are not grossing $300 million a year in any, let's put it this way, all the nightclubs in Vegas, those top 10 that I read off, or the 6 of them in the top 10, those 6 nightclubs were raking in close to $500 million in one city. Think about that. About $500 million, $300 million amongst the top 3. And then you have the other 3, another probably, you know, let's say another 200 million between those 3. Because one was 50, I think, 30 off the top of my head. Okay, so maybe only 400 or 450 million. But still, you get my point. That's a lot of cash coming in. And what's happened is, where did that shift? Where is the nightclubs now? What city is everybody going to for the nightclubs for $400 million a year? Nowhere. I mean, where did they go in 2019 after the shootings? Because there was a lot of concert shootings. You guys are all forgetting. And those concert shootings really put a damper on Las Vegas nightlife in general. So you still have Coachella and the big concerts, and that's what Al Giants wants to build on. But really the bread and butter was this ultra rich, this high-end society that was spending a lot of money. When they came to Vegas and they'd get tables, and you know, they'd start at $1,200 minimum just for one bottle. And they had like a 2-bottle minimum, usually. I don't know what the minimum was. That's what I was trying to figure out. I was trying to remember what they were. Was it $1,200 minimum payment or whatever, you know? But anyways, you're spending a couple grand when you're walking in. Now, they're all boasting, hey, look at all the people at Al Giant Stadium for the Garth Brooks concert. I took a look. It was mostly, you know, people in their 40s and 50s, large, overweight, white people with their kids, families. Now I guarantee you those guys aren't gonna go from there and spend $2,000 on a nightclub, anywhere. They're not gonna spend $2,000 anywhere. So it's a very, very different crowd. And that's why Vegas isn't back. So when they tell you that Vegas is back from an investor standpoint, be aware, yeah, you see people there. And you might even get the numbers on the gambling. I don't even know how they fudge that stuff. So, but where are the nightclubs? Where are the conventions? So, anyways, that's all I want to say on that one, because I just want to blog before I forget it. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening.